Hey friends, my name's Georgie. I'm a breathwork and performance coach helping people gain core confidence through the power of the breath. It is a pleasure and a joy, as always, to have you listening in to the Just Breathe podcast. If you are a new listener or an old timer here, I am so grateful for you supporting the show. So thank you. Thank you. Storytelling is in our DNA, and it is the most incredible way to learn and spread important knowledge. So this is the Just Breathe podcast, where I'll be talking all things breathing to help empower you guys to use the power of your breath to harness your bodies and minds. I'm really excited to share this conversation with you guys. I hope you enjoy it as much as I did. Today I am chatting to the absolute breathwork legend that is Ed Harrold. Ed is the author of the book Life with Breath. He's a breath educator, health, performance, and leadership coach. He also hosts a wonderful breathwork certification course called Breath as Medicine. And this course, it focuses on breath regulation concepts and strategies by applying the principles and philosophy of yoga breathing, or more commonly known pranayama, to improve breathing rates and patterns, and thereby improving your brain health, your heart health, your respiratory health, your nervous system imbalances, your endocrine health, your circadian and ultradian rhythms, as well as cognitive function and emotional intelligence. And it's such a wonderful course, and Ed's plethora of knowledge is mind-blowing. It really speaks the East meets West, the philosophical meeting the scientific, and it was such an incredibly inspiring conversation. We got talking a lot about the power of awareness and the power of tapping in to both your IQ, so your cognitive intelligence, and your EQ, your emotional intelligence, and how to navigate between the two to really listen into that communication that can help to guide you through your day, your week, your month, your life, and of course, the key communicator of that emotional and cognitive intelligence is the breath. And the more we listen to it, the more we can really understand what we need, not what we think we need or what others think we need more commonly, right? We can really listen to what we need to sustain optimal health and well-being, emotionally, spiritually, physically, all of the above. And he really reminded me how incredibly powerful the breath is as a tool for communication, and how there's nothing better than your own body to tell you what you really need in any given moment. So I really hope you enjoy today's conversation. If you do enjoy it, please do send it to a friend or family member to share the wisdom far and wide. The more people talking about the power of the breath, the more people becoming consciously aware, the better. A little bit of housekeeping before we crack on with the episode. Please don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to the Just Breathe podcast. Let's keep on building that strong breathing community. The more people becoming empowered and inspired by the breath, the better. All right, let's crack right on with today's powerful conversation. I really hope you enjoy it. This is episode 52 of Just Breathe with Ed Harrold. What's up, Ed? Hello.
Great to be with you. I'm so excited to share some time with you and your amazing audience of young go-getters.
Yes, absolutely. I'm so grateful to have you on the podcast, Ed. I'm a big fan of your work, and ever since listening to your talk from the Take a Deep Breath podcast, I just really, really wanted to bring you on the show just to talk all about your journey. You know, you're a motivational speaker, you're a coach, you're an educator, and you have this wonderful philosophy behind the science meets the soul almost, you know.
Mhm.
So I'd love to hear, if it's okay, and I'm sure you've been asked this a million times, but like how it all started for you and how you sort of fell into this work, or how this work found you, I suppose.
Well, my life started first and foremost. I was born on Christmas Day in
Okay.
1959, and just it seems like my whole life has been just this amazing ride. And I grew up as a kind of a rambunctious young boy. I had a lot of energy. I was an energy junkie, and I would get into all sorts of things that I probably shouldn't. But that was just what it was like being a young man in America in the 60s and 70s.
Right.
And along the path, I just found my way towards breath control. And breath control to me was an amazing way for me to recreate myself in my 30s. I was in a transitional period. I was involved in behaviors and perceptions of my lower ego, and I wasn't really performing well. I was exhausted of this 30-year-old man. And the universe just led me to mindful breathing, conscious movement, learning how to control my mind in a more productive way and get more out of my life. And I've always been inspired by being present and having great eye contact and putting my heart into everything that I want to do. And it just seemed like controlling my breath was like the one thing that was really, really missing in my life. And then when I began to see what it was bringing to me interpersonally and my relationship with myself, and then what I was able to bring to others, I knew that my life would never be the same again.
No, it's like you literally, people describe it as waking up, don't they? Becoming consciously aware of truly the only constant in our lives, which, I say to my clients, you can't eat all day, you can't work out all day, you can't sleep all day, unfortunately, you can't eat all day and you can't drink all day, but you do breathe all day, almost 25,000 times a day, and so every single breath is the chance to learn that little bit more about yourself and to evolve in your own experience. Is it true that you were sort of dragged to your first yoga class? Is that right?
Yeah, when I was with a young lady, and I remember I woke up one morning and she was in the living room, and I was looking into the living room, and what is she doing to her body? And I've never seen anything like this in my life. And then immediately I was curious, and I had to go in and join. And then I began to see that I was extremely rigid in my body. I couldn't even touch my knees. And I noticed that was creating rigidity in my mind. I was living in a very narrow space. It was very regimented. We're all habitual people, and we get caught in these habits that are sometimes difficult to break.
Yeah.
And once I began to see how challenging it was to my mind to stretch my body, I was off on a tangent. Like, why is this so difficult for me?
Yeah. Yeah. And by stretching your body, then did you open your mind, I suppose, to think in new and different ways, and you just got more and more and more curious?
It's all connected. We are all connected. We're connected right here, right now. The people who we're talking with, we're connected in ways that we can't even imagine in our ego. And to me, it was like the more I was able to relax my body, the more I was able to relax my mind. And the more I was able to relax my mind and, slow down my brainwave activity, the easier it was to self-correct on the fly and maybe make a different choice around an old perception.
Right, 100%. And in terms of conscious breath work and, what led you to develop the methods that you teach today, your sort of AS medicine, what was that first experience? Because a lot of people describe their first experience of breath work as life changing, as an awakening almost of what they can do to actually take control of their own conscious body and mind. What was that for you?
I think initially it was noticing that I had a lot more control over my body.
Yeah.
I had a lot more control over patterns of, a lot more control over my heart rate. I had a lot more control over which thoughts that I were going to bring to life. And this was during the process of just learning the fundamentals. And then the first day I was lying on my back after doing about 20 minutes of breathing and movement. And I felt a wave of relaxation move through my body that I had never felt before. And it was like everything just got soft and tender and melded, and I didn't need to armor myself anymore. And this little voice in my head told me this story, and it was different than the story that I was normally telling myself about myself and about my life. And what I began to see was that I was being camouflaged from the gifts that I was supposed to bring to the world. And as I began to relax, I could see that my greatest strengths were hidden in my fears. And I was able to, and then I was on like this mental tangent around, okay, I've got to start exploring what I've been pushing away.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, where do you even start with that? How do you take your first steps in exploring what you've been pushing away your entire life? I'm sure many people listening to this, that thought would be so overwhelming. And I guess that's why everyone avoids it all the time. What is even the first step of that, you know?
Well, you have to, you can't fix stress, things that stress us in a negative way when you're not stressed. You have to physically be in the routine of the visceral effect of where your breath is being taken away, your heart rate has gone up, the brain is in either I like it or I don't like it mode. And then you have to have a couple tools so that you can, number one, get control of the mind and body, know that this wall that you're in front of you is actually here for your benefit. It's not here to shut you down. And you can really start to turn back to what you've been running away from and communicate with it. And you can say, what do you want from me? Like right now, I'm doing the best I can. And if you're here to help, great. But if you're not here to help, I've learned these breathing exercises and these movement routines and these relaxation techniques where I can kick you out and you're no longer wanted here. So if you can stay if you want to, but you got to be quiet.
Yeah, I mean, that sounds like as well this process of conscious detachment and not identifying with our emotions, and that is such an important and powerful practice in itself, to realize that we are not every thought that comes into our mind. We are not every emotion we feel. Is that something that happened to you in your process as well?
Yeah, so much of this is just entertainment. It's like this great light and sound show inside our brain. And we love to entertain ourselves. And, that's great, because you should want to entertain yourselves first before you entertain the world. Honoring your self-worth, have some self-respect, be accountable to as much as you possibly can without feeling like you're in your own way or self-sabotage. The big thing for me is just standing tall, giving myself permission to stand tall in the mindsets where I was hiding behind the hedges, and I am responsible for what I'm thinking. I am responsible for what I'm feeling. I am choosing this moment rather than this moment choosing me based on who I was 10 years ago.
And why do people hide so much in the Western modern world, do you think? Why, we're even talking about England, how much you love Oxford and London, but I spent a bit of time in the States and in Canada, and I noticed particularly in England, people make themselves small. I mean, it's a smaller country, of course, but a huge passion of mine is teaching women especially to take up space, and not in an egotistical way, but in a conscious way, to arrive and to open and to be in that space, knowing that you fully deserve to be in that moment, because that moment is something you have chosen. And so live it to the fullest. Don't dip your toe in, dive into that moment, you know.
Yeah.
But I'm curious on your opinion, especially, you know, with your such a scientific brain of neuroscience and the science of breath in such a complex manner, that, you know, why do we hide so much? What is this something that is part of evolution?
All the way back to, it goes all the way back to the womb. You know, so many of our mothers were abused and they weren't allowed to shine bright, and they had to be in a regimented relationship based on what their grandparents did. And so many of us came into the world picking up in the womb feelings that we're really not welcome here on earth, or, you know, just get along with everybody and say hi a lot and keep your head down and don't upset the apple cart. You know, we're all of us are waking up to the transparency that's available to us through the nightmare that we've all been going through the last 2 years. And all non-truths are being purified and being brought out into the light. And it's kind of ugly. You know, the breath, we're talking about the breath. The breath is automatically designed to bring us into balance. And when we're out of balance, to bring us back into balance. And balance might be the space between flexibility and strength. And when you have some strength and you've got some flexibility, you've got that in your body, you're going to have that in your brain and your mind. You know, men and women balance each other out perfectly when we're not in an egotistical, codependent relationship. There's a beauty around the feminine intuition that allows the feminine to see further out into the future than the male testosterone, which is only locked in on the present moment in the hunter-gatherer, the protector mode. The men basically are here to listen. We're here to take guidance. It doesn't mean we're subservient, but the feminine energy is what has birthed all of us. And it births us all in the same sense every single moment of our life. And making friends with that inner feminine in the male anatomy is super important to finding happiness, because the model that I was taught as a child, as a male, it's a dead-end street. You're never going to feel comfortable inside your skin. You're never going to be good enough. And you're always going to be competing against this illusionary thing, which you make real in your head, which is all one big lie.
Wow. That's powerful. That, you know, I mean, that phrase, being good enough, it's something, you know, I've come up with in my path so far, in my journey as well, that, you know, I came to breathwork because I was running at 1,000,000,000,000,000 miles an hour, just trying to be good enough, trying to prove to everyone that I was good enough to be here. And then the pandemic was a blessing to me because it forced me to pause and actually try and understand what I was running towards, and I couldn't answer the question. What on earth was I running towards? And it was this need to fulfill this ideal, this ideology that was in fact an illusion. It was very real in my mind, but it was an empty illusion to a degree, and something that was preventing me from living. I almost had to somewhat spiritually die in order to rise again, to rebirth myself into the moment of not caring so much, or caring about what matters, perhaps is a better way of putting it. Yeah.
Totally agree.
Yeah.
You know, and, you know, how do we step out of this old shell and shed this old layer and move into a more lighter version of ourselves? You know, there's an old spiritual saying that you can't fix your mind with your mind. And because your mind doesn't think there's anything wrong.
Look,
and, you know, the subconscious brain is so much more powerful than the conscious brain. And I think we misread a lot of the signals that are in our life for personal growth. And, you know, we have to understand that we are all so loved beyond anything that we could ever share with any of the audience. You know, one of the first steps is, you know, self-forgiveness. The bottom line is every moment of your life, you're doing the best you possibly can, or you would do better. That's the end of the story. So when you understand that this is all a process, and life is going to be a series of temporary situations that will lead to a permanent situation if you don't get it together. So for me, one of the things that I like to do is, I love the word you said, pause. Pause works every single time it's tried, unless you're being chased by a lion. So when we use our breathing, God has already given us this pause, whether we want to admit it or not. There's a pause after your inhale before you exhale. There's a pause after your exhale before you inhale. And those little gaps, these gaps in time, these gaps in space, and when we can use the breath to maybe create a little more comfortable about where we've been, where we are, and where we might choose to go.
Yeah. And you said before, I love what you said about, some of those signs that we miss. Could you share like some examples even of what some of those look like in real time?
What I've noticed through 35 years of this stuff is that it seems like you have to first, for you to get what you want in life, you first have to get what you don't want.
Yeah, get comfortable with the uncomfortable, right?
Right. So like right now, let's just say I'm feeling vulnerable. I'm feeling scared. But that doesn't mean I have to think scared or think scarcity or feed that disturbance. I'm just aware that there's an energy here that's a little unsettling to my brain. How can I be with that? How do I get to the other end of the seesaw if I need to get to the other end of the seesaw? We have to remember that pain and pleasure are simply the opposite ends of the same stick, based on the perception that you're holding in the moment. And is that perception authentic and accurate? Most of us are really, really hard on ourselves, and we let everyone else in our life slide and get 10 extra chances. And I'm just compassionate, but we're not being compassionate to ourselves.
No, absolutely. Yeah. Yeah. I love that. I love what you said. And it's so incredibly important, that self-compassion, that self-forgiveness, to maybe, and it's not lowering the bar, is it, at all? And even then, when you said, don't think in the way that you're feeling, I thought about perhaps maybe a time when I felt like when I didn't have much money, say actually physically in my bank account. That's a solid example though of, but I don't need to think in scarcity. I don't need to think in lack, and it's that I think it's the choice, I suppose, isn't it? Between, am I going to be the victim of my environment and my circumstances, or am I going to have this core confidence that I am who I am regardless of my circumstances? Doesn't mean you ignore perhaps things that need improvement in your life. It surely means, you face your adversity with a resilience that this is for me,
Right. Yeah. And when you think about the breath work that you're teaching, there's so much more than just the physical anatomy of controlling the breath and looking at what happens to our blood and looking what happens to our neurochemistry and looking what happens to our hormonal secretions. That's just the 101 level. How far do you want to go in to what is really being presented to you? And, sometimes in life, you're going to get a little shit on you, and there's a teachable moment there, which we all have to go through. And we just get up, we brush ourselves off. We like, man, that was really hard. I'm going to have this little pity party for myself for 36 hours, 72 hours. Like, I really feel like that took a lot out of me. But then you want to start to move one breath into what you want to occur, one more breath into what you want to occur. And you start to build some mass around that new choosing of how you're going to show up, first interpersonally, and then how you're going to show up externally. And externally might mean, remaining silent when we used to talk, because I can't learn anything new when I'm talking. And when I'm nervous or I'm exhausted, we have a tendency to just keep releasing that energy. We keep forgetting that we're exhaling as much oxygen as we're inhaling. So we want to get energy at both ends of that. We start to think about, wow, these thoughts, they don't really represent how I really feel about myself. So the next time that intruder comes to my mind, I'm going to take a focused breath into this. because this is not scared. This is courageous. This is my best friend. And if I can just tune my mind to what I hear here every second of my life, I'll hear 3 words at its fundamental level. I love you. And that's good enough for me.
Yeah. Yeah, 100%. It's powerful, man. I mean, that's the thing too, as well, is it's so simple. And a lot of people think within breath work, so many people say to me, and it makes me laugh, not laughing at them, but you know, in the logic behind it is completely there is none when people tell me I don't have time for breath work. And I say, well, you breathing right now? You say, yeah.
Right.
Okay.
Right.
So could you take one good deep breath today? Just one. And that's a win. Just one. Just show up for one. Maybe tomorrow you'll take 2. And then, you know, on and on and on. And I say to them, you know, how long did you wait at Starbucks today for that latte?
Right.
How long did you stand in line for your coffee today? I don't know, about 5-10 minutes. Ah, right. You don't have time for breath work. And I was like, you could have done the breath work in the line for your coffee. You know, it's like a lot of people think it has to be this hour and a half long practice. Whereas it's not true. It's, you know, you take almost 20,000 breaths a day, depending.
Right.
That's 25,000 chances to come back to you, right?
There's a lot of opportunity out there for us. One of the biggest thieves of our creativity and what our life is really about is man-made time. You know, the relationship that we have with man-made time basically keeps us in bondage. We don't understand time, and we react to it like it's better than us or it controls us. We control our perception of time. Time does not control us. And when you think about just expanding ourselves beyond where we've been, well, it happens organically and naturally with breath control. Because what you'll notice when you start to just go into it a little bit, all of a sudden you'll catch yourself and you're outside of your normal castle walls. So you've bypassed all of your constraints of your lower ego. You're outside of the wall. You're free of yourself without having to beg, borrow, or steal, or do whatever you need to do to get yourself into a comfortable space. So the breath work really is all about quality in life. It's not about quantity. It's about quality. And if you can have a strong QOL, or quality of life, quantity will mean something to you, but not as much as quality. When you think about time, early on in the process, there's always enough time to do what you don't want to do. And there's never enough time to do what you would prefer to do. And that's kind of the first step of calling yourself on your shit, or calling yourself on yourself and saying, I'm not showing up. Why am I not showing up? I'm not blaming anyone else, but this next breath right here is going to birth a new awareness to me where I will no longer participate in those thought forms.
Yeah. That's interesting. You know, I'm fascinated with time because I've definitely been through, ever since I've become a lot more consciously aware of my own body and mind, I've been through these things where I'm like, why do I still feel like I don't have time? Time is a man-made thing. You're right, in terms of even the clock, as time as we know it, it is an illusion. It's a man-made thing. It's political almost. That, you know, I looked into the invention of the clock and time, and in Paris, and it's fascinating actually to Google. And there were competitions, or there was politics over who would set the main time that everyone else set. That it was political. You know,
right?
And it's that, well, it's not organic. It came out of power and ego and control, and so no wonder our relationship with time is often so heavily grasped. And you know, I love what you said about slowing time down, and because you can bet you that, say my bathroom flooded with water right now, I would suddenly have all the time I needed to fix it because it was an emergency. Or if someone I love went into hospital, you have the time, you just instantly have time. Doesn't matter what's going on. And so then it
Right.
makes me wonder, so then why don't I have time for that one adventure I wanted to do a month, that hike, you know, or that going to a beautiful place for a couple days? Like why did I feel like I had time to do that? Or is it actually coming down to, did I not feel like I was worth the time because I'm giving so much away? Maybe.
It's all about self-worth. Life is all about self-worth without ego.
Yeah.
You know, we have all chosen to be here right now. And I want to be on the moral side of right. And I want to extend myself out to anyone that's in need. You know, we're all in this together. And no one gets left behind unless you want to get left behind. And I don't think a lot of us understand clocks and time. Like, we get on the treadmill and faster is always better. You know, if life's a race, it's a race you want to come in last. Understand what these numbers mean. They are simply a grid where your ego can wrap itself around it and make understanding of what you're doing around breath control in your cardio. It's not designed to judge you. It's not designed to compete against. It's not designed to compare anything. You know, when you're working with the breath, I get it, the numbers are important, but I like to feminize those numbers. In the feminization of the numbers, it's not so hardcore where I judge myself on how I'm doing today. It's not really important how I'm doing today. What's important is how I'm going to do tomorrow. And I want to be alive tomorrow. So seeing the kind of bigger picture about how we allow this clock to attack us, like we're at war with this clock. And I think, you know, the quality of life all has to do around the quality of functional breathing. I mean, less breaths per minute is going to mean a lower heart rate. Lower heart rate is going to mean optimal blood pressure. Optimal blood pressure is going to mean great neurochemistry. And great neurochemistry is going to mean that your body is naturally going to reduce inflammation and improve circulation. It's going to burn fat, not glucose. So it's just this magical time, but understanding that the numbers are just information. And what you do with the information will be a reflection of your mental health.
Absolutely. You know, it makes sense. And almost, you know, it seems like in the long run, they're smarter than us. Those ancient yogis, that they don't take their age from time. They take their age from the number of breaths they take and the number of beats their heart makes. And the less, the better.
Yeah. You know, like, I first of all want to give thanks to so many teachers that have come before me.
Oh, yeah.
Before this became commercialized. And I was so blessed to make a great living around it. But I'm so grateful for all the teachers that came before me, ones I haven't even met, that spent thousands of hours for no monetary return, but just wanted to get a little better understanding of how can I leave the earth a little bit better than what I was born into. And that was good enough for them.
Yeah. Yeah. And, you know, there's nothing more authentic, and these yogic teachings, you know, that span back hundreds of thousands of years, where there isn't any egotistical gain involved, is anyone can connect to them instantly and understand, yeah, it's authentic. It's not driven by any sort of, you know, inclination of any gain. It's just purely vulnerable, authentic connection. And I think actually that's what everyone's looking for, isn't it? Is connection. Right. And the breath is the most universal language on the planet, so I love it. Everyone knows what or ha ha ha, or if I cry, everyone knows what that means, you know. And why is that? Why do we all know exactly what that means?
I just know that for me, the breath is the place where I can go to get the truth.
Yeah.
Not the wiggle truth, but the true north truth. And It's a place where I can go to be present. That there's a reason why they call it the present, is because it's the only moment that you can interact with the creative powers of the world, where you can create what you want. You can't be present yesterday. That's going to have all sorts of subconscious imprints. Tomorrow is not here yet. Tomorrow is going to be today. So when we're stressed or tired, notice we're never present. We're in yesterday or tomorrow. So the breath and this movement of this thoracic diaphragm and accompanying with the vagus nerve, not only are you getting tremendous stress all day long.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, I'd love to move on to talk a little bit about your book, Life with Breath, and to understand what the IQ plus EQ equals new you means. Where did that come up?
Well, the book was just something that was just inside me. And, I got up one morning at like 3:30 in the morning, and I just sat down at the computer, and I noticed that I was really clear, getting up really early when everybody else was asleep in my house. And between 3:30 and 5, like it just channeled right through me. And, I try to simplify things. And that's the great part about breath work, is if it's not simple, you don't give a crap. It's like, if it's simple, you're just drawn right to it. Like, life doesn't have to be so complex for you to prove to everyone how smart you are. I get it. But at the end of the day, life is simple. Sunrise, sunset, winter, spring, summer, and fall. All the simple high tide, low tide. This is what we're trying to tap into, this immense power of Mother Nature. We're not trying to tap into like male ego. So when I was writing the book, I was thinking about emotional intelligence, because I'm a big time feeler. Like, I love to feel everything as a gift, whether it's good feeling or bad feeling. I know it's just energy. So EQ, really trying to make peace in the belly, with what the belly's holding. It doesn't matter what your belly looks like. It matters what it feels like. 6-pack abs are great. I love them. But if it's going to impair my thoracic diaphragm moving down towards my lower body on the inhale, I'm going to have stress issues and a higher heart rate. So, first it was about, getting into the body with the breath and evolving my emotional intelligence, how I feel about myself, how I feel about the world and my relationships. And then obviously IQ. IQ is, the cognitive response to the emotional content. We're all taught in school that education is all about the brain and, memorization, repetition, and regurgitating it out into a test. And then you take the test and you do well or you didn't do well. And that's great for some folks. And we need super intelligent people like that. I get it. But most of us are really sensitive feelers. And we have this amazing gut, and we have this amazing emotional intelligence in our gut. And I think that our feelings, how we feel about something, will correlate into a level of mental interest or disinterest. So for me, it was about giving folks some different breathing techniques in a 30-day program where they could get their feet wet a little bit, work with some different techniques, 8 to 10 techniques, and start to raise the container of energy of their body with a lower heart rate, and make peace with how you feel about yourself. And then allowing thoughts to be felt with a focused breath, I think, can really help us evolve humanity a step or two before I cross that bridge.
Yeah, 100%. It's powerful. And the thing with what you were saying there really resonated to me, actually, how afraid so many people are to actually be alone with their thoughts. There's so many distractions and stimulations in the world, the phone, right? You don't ever have to be alone anymore if you don't want to. Whereas it's so important to, like you said, to listen to the most intelligent being that could ever exist in your life, beyond your doctor, your psychiatrist, whoever, is your own body, your heart's intelligence, your head intelligence, the gut feelings. How afraid do you think people really are to be truly alone with themselves, even just for a moment?
Well, I think in the opening layers of starting something new, uh, there is going to be that feeling of isolation, separation. I need to be stimulated by the drug of the phone or the computer. I get it. When you're starting something new, I think it's really important to put yourself in a position where you can be successful. That doesn't mean, it means give yourself a few minutes a day where you can build up some psychological self-confidence and self-esteem. So just start with 5 minutes, start with a minute a day. And so you put yourself in a body. Number two, in your mind, cut yourself some slack. I like to be in beginner's mind because when I'm a beginner, I can do no wrong because I don't know anything. So when I get out of bed every morning, the first thing I tell myself is stay in beginner's mind because it's a constant learning mode. I try to learn one new thing every day. And what's amazing about that is that means you also can forget one old thing that has no preference or relevance to who you are today. So learning one new thing a day, releasing one old thing that happened 20 years ago, just let it go. I know it's hard. Some are harder than others, but you've chosen this life. You are 1,000 times more powerful than you give yourself credit for. You are the most amazing thing on earth right now, and you are so richly needed to show up. So put yourself in a position where you can be successful trying something new. It's all about meditation. Now, I know that's a dirty word because I'm going to have to just sit with myself. But what do you think breath work is? It's meditation where you're giving your mind something to do. So you can bypass that part of your mind that doesn't want to do it, give it something to do, and then just notice that you're meditating on your breath, whether you're going for a run or in a game or, out in the world or at a corporate boardroom. It's all meditation.
Yeah, I love that. 1 minute a day and learn one new thing a day. I'm going to remember that. I love it. Ed, incredible. I'm so excited to read your book. Actually, it's on my long list of books, but just having that structure and that sort of guided steps of working through it, I think is fantastic. I think you really find a true master of something when someone can explain it incredibly simply, and when someone can take out the complexity of it. I find often people that have to talk all the time often actually don't know that much, and the people that know the most actually tend to talk the least, it seems.
Well, here's what I'll say, is that what you're doing works. It's worked for thousands of years. It's going to work 1,000 years from now. Don't wait any longer. Take to heart what Georgie's teaching you and just trust that she can hold your hand until you're ready to walk alone. And you are safely held in learning these techniques. And I guarantee you in 2 weeks, you'll have a totally different perception of yourself, your family, your coworkers, your skill sets, and your ability to love life fully.
100%. 100%. I mean, to close off, big question, but what do you think the world needs more of right now?
Forgiveness.
Yeah. Of themselves and everyone else.
Just forgive yourself. Stop carrying this load. Where do you feel tender in your body? Where is there an old emotional or mental or physical injury? Direct your breath into that area and start to circulate some fresh wind through that old wound.
Yeah.
And in its own time, you'll have a deeper understanding of why that wound is there, whether it's physically, mentally, or emotionally. You'll say, aha, that is why that happened to me. I am grateful that the universe chose me to go through that rather than somebody else. I can smile now where I was recently crying, and I'm ready to move forward now. And when I give myself permission to release that subconsciously, I'm giving other people on the planet to release that also.
Yeah, 100%. I believe that if you start with you, then you will affect everyone around you. And if you can unapologetically step into everything that is you, everyone else will begin to follow.
One breath away.
Definitely. Definitely.
Simplify everything.
Yeah.
Start with what are you saying yes to, and what are you saying no to?
Yeah.
And where do I need to say no where I was saying yes yesterday? And where do I need to say yes where I was saying no yesterday? Simplify it all. Yes, no. Get back to the basics, the way we were taught as children. Slow your breath down. Love your life, especially the parts that you are at war with yourself on.
Yeah. Yeah. Damn, that is some wisdom and a half. Thank you so, so much, Ed. I really, really appreciate everything you've brought your energy to and to share it. It's really, really meaningful and wonderful, and just thank you for everything you've done so far and continue to do and teach. You know, incredibly inspirational leader and someone I hugely admire. So yeah, thank you so much for talking to me.
It's my honor. God bless you and your audience. I wish you guys nothing but the best, and I'm sure we'll do it again sometime in the future.
Absolutely.